We continue on Go Vegan with Bob Linden. Happy Mother's Day. And we hope that you'll support this program so that mothers can get vital information about their health and their families. We've been broadcasting now for over 10 years, and we are listener-supported. We have to pay for airtime every week, and your tax-deductible donation also supports Progressive Talk Radio. So you can make your donation by making your check payable to Go Vegan Radio. Mail it to P.O. Box 475-414, San Francisco, California 94147. And for archives and podcasts and to donate online, you go to goveganradio.org. We have close to 400 programs archived on the website. And if you scroll down past shows, you will come across programs featuring my next guest, who I'm honored to welcome back to Go Vegan with Bob Linden. It's Vaidya Priyanka, and she is, from a tradition of over 700 years of Ayurvedic women healers from India. And it being Mother's Day, I thought we might talk to her about your health as a mom, your children's health, and who is your child's mother anyway? Is your child drinking the milk of a cow? Are we mistaking cows for our mothers? What's going on here? So welcome back to the show, Vaidya. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Bob. It's lovely to hear from you again.
It's wonderful to have you back on the program. And just for a moment, though, let our listeners know, perhaps they're hearing of the Ayurvedic tradition for even the first time, what your tradition is in health practice.
Okay, so I come from southwestern India, Kerala, and I come from a matriarchal lineage of women Ayurvedic healers. Ayurveda is an ancient form of medicine from India, and quite simply put, it is the science of life. It is how you embrace certain lifestyle changes in order to have fantastic longevity for you and your family. And it is all about eating the right things, drinking the right things the way that we were supposed to, rather than how we have become used to. So it is a very holistic form of science, which is very beautifully intertwined into the tapestry of our own aliveness, our own cellular growth, our own consciousness, the way our bodies are inside, and how we respond to a specific environment outside.
Mm-hmm. And the lineage goes back over 700 years.
717 years. Yeah, last October we were 717 years now.
Wow. Who started it? How did it get started with the first one? and that's a lot of moms, a lot of wisdom passed down from on Mother's Day. Look at all the moms passing.
A lot of moms.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of moms who were not really keeping mum, actually. They had so much to say all the time. And everybody has this tendency to say, oh, you're from India, you must have so much cow's milk. And I said, no, I belong to a lineage, and I have been vegan since I was 4 years old. I actually think I drank milk 2 years too many, from age 2 to age 4, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so people would think that you drink cow's milk being from India, but you've been on my show in the past, and you call dairy filth, actually, on the program.
That is true, actually. See, I just think about it like this. Cows do not drink cow's milk. In fact, the truth is, calves stop drinking cow's milk between the ages of 6 to 8 months. And as we have often discussed, Bob, humans are the only species that drink the milk of another animal. For example, you will never see a kitten drink milk from a bear, or a mouse drink milk from a deer, or a doe, rather. And it's really sad that we feel that we must drink milk from cows.
I wonder how it got to be cows too. I mean, we have dogs sitting in the living room. Why not have a glass of dog milk? Or squirrels go by; they're so energetic. Why aren't we drinking squirrel milk? Why would we settle on cows? Like the poor cow.
Very interesting question. Very interesting question. I absolutely have no idea why it became the poor cow. But, if you really think about this, we as humans even drink milk from an adult animal that do not drink their own milk after they reach 7 months of age. Mm-hmm. See, for example, would you drink milk from a lactating woman? No. Well, when I ask this question, many people look at me and they're like quite disgusted with me when I tell them, do you drink a lactating woman's milk? But the point is that you do drink a lactating woman's milk. It's just that it's on all fours and it's a cow. And the biggest issue that I see, the biggest problem with cow's milk is that the protein in the cow's milk damages the human immune system. And different people have written about it. There has been a lot of research, but amino acids, pretty much the units that make up these proteins, are the building blocks for all cells which are thriving and living in our body. So when the amino acids in our food are properly broken down by the digestive system into protein, it does no harm to the immune system. But protein from milk is absorbed into the blood fully indigested. So it provokes an immune response. So repeated exposure to these proteins will disrupt the normal immune function and will obviously lead to diseases in the long term.
So, and what vast array of diseases would be caused by dairy consumption?
Well, in my practice, I've noticed a lot of people who have plenty of milk protein in their diet are the chances of asthma or other chronic respiratory conditions, autoimmune disease, different types of cancer, particularly breast, colon, lung, childhood anemia, diarrhea, constipation, and autism, ADD, ADHD, the Asperger's syndrome. I've also seen several people have osteoporosis and arthritis, which we think will be prevented by drinking milk because that's what we are, taught from the very beginning. And I've noticed a lot of people having osteoporosis because they've had too much milk in their diet. Mm-hmm. And, of course, with children, a very common thing is ear infection.
Yeah, it's pretty prevalent, ear infections, and that's caused by dairy?
See, it's like this. Every child that has ever had any type of ear infection has had some form of cow's milk in his or her diet, all right? And I have seen mothers who know better, who had a vegan pregnancy and who breastfed their children until the age of 2, and after that made sure the children had either grain milk or hemp milk or almond milk or rice milk, and these children have never had an ear infection. And the other thing is that we are taught to believe that antibiotics will actually take care of these ear infections. And that's not true because the average American drinks milk and has other forms of dairy which contain new strains of bacteria which are immune to the 52 different antibiotics which are also present in milk. So how many ever painful shots you put your child through or courses of antibiotics, it just will not work because it is immune to those 52 different antibiotics. So I always advise people, especially young mothers or even, a little older mothers now, I tell them, please make sure if you have any issues with your children, the first thing you need to do is start an elimination diet, remove dairy from your child's consumption, and you tell me how much better they are doing. I'm yet to meet one patient who's come and told me, symptoms have become worse. It's never happened. And I see patients all over the world, and I can tell you that for a fact that irrespective of where you come from, this is the truth. It's not just in America. It is true in India. It is true in Europe. It's true all over the world. We are being lied to on a continuous basis that dairy is good for you, and that is completely untrue.
Mm-hmm. So it's not like any particular races have a tolerance for dairy, or it's actually good for them. You see the same diseases across the board, no matter what the nationality, basically.
No, I see disease across the board, but that's because of the nature of what I do. But I must tell you that there are some parts of Africa where people, for some reason, can tolerate milk in small quantities. Also in India, I've noticed that a lot of people are lactose intolerant and they just don't know it. They have abdominal bloating after they have dairy, and they just don't know why that happened. The amount of hormones that we have started feeding our cows is something absolutely disgusting. And what has happened is there is early sexual maturation in children, in young girls, and there is early breast growth. We are basically creating a perfect recipe for disaster by having the amount of milk and dairy products that we are having in our diet. But to answer your question, is it the same type of diseases across the board? The answer is yes. But in certain groups of people across the world, I tend to see more of certain diseases than other diseases.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned lactose intolerance. We hear that of people of African descent, Asian, Jewish, American Indian, indigenous people. What is lactose intolerance? Isn't really a disease. It's a natural condition, isn't it? I mean, to be intolerant of lactose, or?
See, what is really happening with lactose intolerance is some people are allergic to milk, which means it can actually be like an anaphylactic reaction where a person could die from ingesting small amounts of milk. There are some other people where they do have milk in their diet, they don't realize that it is causing harm because they've had it only in small quantities. A classic example is having a cup of tea with just a spot of milk, right? Now, people don't realize that the spot of milk over time can actually cause problems, right? They don't realize that the dairy industry is killing them every time. And it is a complete dairy industry myth. The biggest thing is that they have scores of fat and cholesterol and allergens in the cow's milk. Even if it is organic, it doesn't matter. Milk is milk. And they all have measurable quantities of these pesticides and dioxins, and sometimes they're more than up to 150 times above the safe levels. Then they have powerful antibiotics. More than anything else, they have blood pus and feces and viruses. And in my opinion, it's one of the biggest reasons why we have death in America.
And the way you sum it up, I see why you did call it filth. I mean, it just sounds like a filthy recipe. I hear often that there's tuberculosis, there's leukemia. It's just the strangest food, really, for people to consider consuming.
The strangest things that I have actually ever seen amongst my patients who've had a lot of dairy ingestion, I've noticed that there is plenty of cerebrovascular issues that people go through. Amongst children, I've seen a very steady rise in bronchitis, emphysema, and asthma. I've also noticed plenty of people with diabetes, as you must have been, you must have been reading, and I'm sure it's everywhere these days that diabetes is on the rise, especially for young children. I've also noticed people with nephritis, and I really believe that if we stop drinking the milk of a cow or any other animal, we would have less behavioral problems. There are lots of people who have suicidal tendencies, and I think that having too much dairy in your diet does affect your mood. Maybe that's why it's called a mood. The sound of the cow.
Mood. Yeah, bad mood. Yeah. So we're talking to Vaidya Priyanka. We have to take a break now. And if you've missed any of this enlightening interview, we are archived at goveganradio.com or .org. And 30 seconds before the break, Vaidya, how might people contact you if they're interested in?
They can reach me on vaidya.priyanka@gmail.com, which is vaidya.priyanka@gmail.com, and I'd be more than happy to answer their questions.
Okay, and if you missed the spelling, email me, bob@goveganradio.com. I'll connect you with Vaidya, and we'll continue our discussion coming up on Go Vegan with Bob Linden.
Let's all get up and dance. dance to a song that was a hit before your mother was born. Though she was born a long, long time ago.
We continue now on Go Vegan with Bob Linden. Happy Mother's Day, and we are learning today, who is your mom anyway? Is it that cow in the field there, and you've mistaken her for your mom, and you've been drinking her milk, and that's causing so many problems, so many diseases and problems in society, as we've discussed earlier in this program with Vaidya Priyanka. If you've missed any of our discussion thus far, go to goveganradio.com, where you can make a tax-deductible donation to support the program so we can have guests like Vaidya on the program. She is from a lineage of over 700 years, Ayurvedic women healers from India, and she doesn't suggest that you consume dairy at all, if you've heard us up to this point. Vaidya, you run into a lot of people who have, always say they have mucus problems and their eyes are running and all of that. A lot of that has to do with dairy, and a lot of people seem to have those conditions clear up when they stop with the dairy fairly soon after that.
See, the biggest thing with dairy is that it increases the mucus content of the body. It's called kapha or kabam in Ayurvedic medicine. And it also makes a person increasingly lethargic. If you really think about, the first argument that people come, where am I going to get my calcium from if I'm not drinking milk? Or where am I getting my protein from? See, the one thing with calcium is that, have you ever wondered where the cows get their calcium from for their big bones? But the truth is they get them from plants. The calcium that they consume from plants has a tremendously large amount of magnesium. And basically without magnesium, you cannot use the calcium which is necessary for the body. So the calcium in cow's milk is basically useless because it has completely insufficient magnesium content. That's why when I supplement without a dairy source of calcium, I always tell my patients, make sure you get a combination with calcium, vitamin D, magnesium, and zinc, because that is the best combination for your body. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed that every time we have mucus in our systems, the chances of having different types of diseases, especially concerning cancer or bronchitis or pneumonia, influenza, because the biggest problem with pneumonia and influenza is because we have the weak immune system and the increase in mucus. So when you have a weak immune system and an increase in mucus, which is both caused because of the ingestion of cow's milk and other dairy products, it is bound to happen. It's not, science which is out of the way. It's quite complementary into understanding why it happens to begin with.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned calcium and magnesium, and people might say, well, but then how do I get my vitamin D?
Vitamin D is usually from the sun. It's otherwise called the sunshine vitamin. So you can get enough vitamin D from leafy green vegetables and sunshine. And protein is the other one, right? Because people say, if you really think of what milk is, it is some sort of a liquid protein because of its high protein content. And they actually leach calcium from the body because it has so much high protein. And it is true that countries that kind of have very high protein diets with meat and milk and other dairy products, they have the highest rate of osteoporosis.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy, right? The highest dairy consumption and the highest rate of osteoporosis. Something wrong with that picture.
Absolutely something wrong with the picture.
Mm-hmm. So,
but it's a very regular thing that happens all over the world. It's not just in one place. And the biggest problem with 80% of the protein in milk is casein. I'm sure you know that. And casein is like a very powerful binder. It is a polymer that is actually used to make plastics. And it can hold beer bottles, labels, or wine bottles, labels in place. And it is in thousands of processed foods as a binder. And they sometimes say it is something caseinate. But what it really is casein. And the biggest problem with casein is that it is also a powerful allergen. So it by itself is a histamine that creates lots of mucus in the body. And, sometimes, have you heard about the Flojo's body thing, the Olympic athlete Flojo?
Uh-huh.
The only medicine in the Olympic athlete Flojo's body was Benadryl, which is a power antihistamine that she took to combat her last meal, which was pizza.
Mm-hmm. So, killed by the dairy.
Killed by dairy. Killed by dairy happens to a lot of people, by the way.
Death by
It's
dairy.
terrible. They just don't know it. And the thing is, they say, you know what, it cannot be that bad and all of that. People tell me all kinds of things. But the biggest issue that I have noticed is when people who are on a vegetarian diet, which is normally considered pretty healthy when compared to a meat-eating diet, correct? And when they are on this vegetarian diet and they still have high cholesterol levels. So you will have these half-baked medical professionals, as I call them. It's good to have information, but not wrong information. So they'll come and tell me, oh, how come I'm a vegetarian? It must be my genetics that I have cholesterol. The truth is, the cholesterol content of 3 glasses of milk is equal to what one would get from about 52, 53 slices of bacon.
Wow, holy cow. That's
a lot of cholesterol content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and see, the word vegetarian now even upsets me because it's been so compromised by the dairy industry and the poultry industry. They laugh all the way to the bank when somebody has a cheese omelet and a glass of milk and says, well, I'm a vegetarian, but there you say, the cholesterol right through the roof. I mean, we have to really distinguish vegan and vegetarian at this point. The word's been so hijacked.
Absolutely. Vegan and vegetarian is very important. In fact, I've noticed a lot of people having symptoms of mad cow disease and then not even knowing that they have the symptoms of mad cow disease. And when I bring it up, they get extremely upset. And then when they realize that the problem is happening, then they say, oh, my God, you're absolutely right. See, the thing is, there might be a lot of the prions in the milk and meat. And as we know, these prions are really a crystalline substance that act like a virus. And they have a kind of an incubation period, sometimes from about 4.5 years to about 30-plus years. But the final result of the situation is mad cow disease. And it shows in so many forms. People get lethargic, they get extremely irritable, they get moody again, and all kinds of things. My goodness, it's just so much easier to stick with things that don't affect our behavior so much.
Yeah, well, mad cow disease, though, it's known, that's dementia, and then it, deteriorates from there. Mad cow disease is 100% fatal, and you think you are seeing it in the population? I know the government doesn't want anybody to see it. They don't want to test cows for it, but what do you think? It's out there?
So, well, I actually see a lot of people with the beginning symptoms of mad cow disease. There is a lot of bleeding from the stools, but then that can also happen with Crohn's disease, right? Because it's what is called the Mycobacterium paratuberculosis, which causes a bovine disease called Crohn's disease. So the thing with that, when cows are diagnosed with the same disease, they have diarrhea and heavy fecal shedding of bacteria. And this bacteria becomes cultured in the milk, and it cannot be destroyed by pasteurization. And the milk-borne bacteria will begin to grow in the human host. And the results will be IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome, and Crohn's disease. So that's why I see an increasing amount of people with Crohn's disease, IBS, and ulcerative colitis now. And the first thing that we advise them is to make them vegan, number one, because your body does not have to work so hard. It digests much better when you don't have extra dairy in your body. It's very important.
I think we have maybe 3 or 4 minutes left, and I wonder if you have some health tips for moms today on Mother's Day, tips on keeping the family healthier, or anything in mind along those lines?
I would recommend about 5 things that I think people should be doing on a regular basis. The first thing is to make sure that your family drinks a good amount of water and that the family stays hydrated. It is extremely important. In a very sweet kind of way, a family that observes others' drinking habits, I meant drinking water, definitely is healthier. A whole, complete whole host of medical conditions can be, taken care of just by proper hydration.
How much per day would you say? How much should one drink?
It depends upon the person and the level of activity and the type of weather that they reside in, but our body depletes about 2.4 liters of water a day. So at least 2.5 liters of water drunk all through the day is definitely recommended, because you shouldn't really drink too much water all at once, because it can be very taxing on the kidneys. The second thing that I would recommend is I would recommend people to make sure that they eat organic and local as much as possible, and to eat seasonal. The whole concept of getting grapes when we're not supposed to get them, or getting carrots all through the year, that's not very conducive to a normal human biology and biochemistry. It's a good idea to eat local and seasonal and all of that. That's the second piece of advice. The third is to completely give up milk and dairy products from your diet. You will notice that your skin is better, there is much better longevity, and your entire family is happier, because people are not in this mood, and they don't even realize a lot of children can focus better on their education if in case they are not given this mucus causing substance that people call milk. And the fourth piece of advice is to make sure you get good hours of sleep. A normal average human being needs at least 8 hours of sleep. Children need between 9 and 10 hours. Make sure you don't eat very close to bedtime, that there be at least about 2.5 hours, 3 hours time difference between when you have your last meal and when you retire for the night. And the fifth piece of advice is, of course, exercise. It's very important to get a lot of physical activity in as much as possible. Now with summer, it makes it a lot easier for those of us in North America. So at least 4 to 5 times a week is definitely recommended.
Wonderful advice from...
I think
yeah.
I think with that, the family will be very healthy.
That's great advice for Mother's Day from Vaidya Priyanka. Did you want to say hello to a member of your family? Where you wanted to shout out to? Was it your grandmom?
Absolutely. I'd like to give a shout out to my grandmom and my mom. I don't know where they are now and which part of the world, but I really adore the fact that I was able to choose them as my family. Like we believe in India that the child chooses the parents, and I'm glad I made a good choice, even though I didn't know I was making it. So thank you very much, ladies. It's wonderful to have you in my life.
It's fantastic. Yes, Vaidya Priyanka from lineage over 700 years of Ayurvedic women healers from India. Again, how people might reach you?
Yes, you can reach me via email on vaidya.priyanka@gmail.com, which is vaidya.priyanka@gmail.com. You could also call my office on 315-834-2627.